Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Foot Traffic. Today, I get to introduce you to Jake Kelfer. Jake and I connected on Instagram, and since then have done a few things. And I'm excited to have Jake share a little behind the scenes of strategy, because let me tell you, people DM me all the time, and not a lot of people from DM go to my podcast and have other things. And I liked what Jake was doing, and I wanted to bring him to you guys. So Jake, welcome to the show. And can you just share a little bit about you, your story, your entrepreneurial background?
Of course, Stacey, thanks so much for that intro. And I'm pumped to be here. It's going to be so much fun. So a little bit about me is I grew up as a kid that wanted to play in the NBA. I'm a big basketball nut, and the dream was to play for the Lakers, which we just won our championship. So I'm pretty excited about that. But after stopping growing at about 5 feet 8 inches, that dream quickly became, just a pipeline dream, something that wasn't going to happen. Went to college to pursue being a sports agent because in my mind, if I couldn't be on the court as a player, I wanted to be on the court as an agent representing the best players in the world. Well, it just so happened that the agency that was going to hire me couldn't bring me on board. And I ended up getting a job with the Los Angeles Lakers as a corporate partnerships assistant. And that was really where everything started to change for me because I had a couple different interactions. I got to see what Kobe Bryant did in his final NBA season. And it really made me realize that as much as I loved working for the Lakers, the greatest sports organization in the world, I needed to be on my own path to make the impact that I knew I was capable of making. And so while I was working with the Lakers, I ended up writing my first book. That becomes an Amazon bestseller. I start traveling all over the world as a speaker. I end up starting an event in basketball to combine my entrepreneurship with sports passions. And here we are, I've written 2 books, travel all over. And now I coach people on how to take their ideas and turn them into profitable and impactful businesses.
I love it. Okay. Well, and it's so funny too. I love hearing the story behind the story. Like, what does this look like? How did you start? Because I think success leaves clues. And the more you can share how you started and what that looked like and where you pivoted and how you've used the things that you were passionate about to build this, it starts to be really inspiring for other people to hear, okay, maybe I'm in this journey now, but there's so much more ahead of me, or there's a pivot or, something big coming my way. So I love hearing you share that. Now, as somebody who is in this partnership type role, can you just kind of fill us in? What does that look like? What were you being taught? What strategies goes into something like that? Because that's really interesting.
So my main role as a corporate partnerships assistant when I was with the Lakers, and the reason I liked it really, and this is a little more behind the scenes stuff, is because it's one of the few departments in sports teams that works with the basketball side of the business as well as the business side of the business.
Got it.
And that was really interesting for me to kind of combine those worlds. And so my role really was putting together spreadsheets for our executive directors, our managers, our coordinators on what brand partnership agreements had to be fulfilled. And then on game days, which was my favorite part, I was actually picking all the contestants for the halftime contest, the half court shots.
Got it.
I did the greets and those things. So anything that was related with a brand, I was involved in helping facilitate those arrangements.
Got it. So definitely a lot of those strategies and things that you were starting to learn, I can see how that can translate into how do you build your brand now online. So when you are trying to connect with people, we've connected on Instagram, and I always don't even want to tell people that because I'm just asking for people to DM me. Can I be on your podcast? Let's talk about how you build relationships, how you build connections in an online world where when you come into it, people don't know who you are, right? Like you kind of start as nobody in somebody's eyes, and you've got to work your way into this know, like, and trust factor. What does that look like for you?
That is one of the biggest questions of the decade, right?
Yes.
And it's such a powerful one too, because there is a science behind it. And at the root of it is when we go online, here's the most obvious difference, but one that we don't ever think about in changing our approach. Meaning, one, you're in person where you get to see everything. Yes. And then B, you're online where you're a text message. You're literally your personality is based off the copy you send to somebody else. And a lot of times we think that, sure, our personality will come through in that, but it's not the same as if we say the same thing in person. Right. And a lot of us will approach a DM and email outreach the same way we'd approach somebody in person, and that doesn't work. Yeah. We have to meet people where they're at and start to build that emotional connection before we can create an ask in that person. And so when we're focused on building these relationships online, whether you're coming online because of this crazy year that we've had, or you are an online coach in its entirety, is you have to find a way to get somebody to understand first, who the heck are you?
Right.
And then you have to start to be able to facilitate and get familiar and name recognition before you can make your next play. Because the truth is, we all want something, right? You don't just reach out for no reason. You reach out for a specific reason. And the more clear you are on that intention, and the more clear you are on your process, the easier it becomes and the better results you're going to see and the more relationships you're going to have, which is the greatest part of life.
Well, and here's the thing, knowing your intention, that's not the first message you send. Like when people are like, oh, I want to do this. Oh, let me go ask Stacy if I can do this, right? That is not a strategy. That is not how this works. And I think it's such a skill, and it's something we have to master. And you're right. The way we show up in person, some of us are not great writers. Some of us, like, we need people to see us or feel our energy or hear the tone. And that is lacking when you send a quick DM that's copy paste to the same person, to different people, but it's the same message over and over and over.
And that's where we get into trouble here, right?
Yes.
Because if we look at all the studies, it'll show you that almost 90% of our communication is done with our body language or our tone. 7%, I think, is the actual statistic, is done with the words. Well, we just eliminated body language and tone by going online. So now your words mean everything. And we've also all been that person that sent a text message or sent an email, and then we receive it completely the wrong way.
Definitely.
And we're like, who the heck does this person think they are? Right? And we're like, oh my gosh. Or they respond back to you in a way that you're like, whoa. I hope you didn't take offense to that. I just meant this. And so that's why we have to be very, very clear on the word choice that we begin to use and make it so that the person feels welcomed rather than attacked. And that's something in the initial outreach is so key, which is why customization and personalization plays so big in today's world. Because just in the last 10 months alone, more people than ever before have started using Instagram or LinkedIn or DMs or of any sort to really try to grow their business. Because there are no more networking events. There are no morning meetups. There are no flights that you're taking, right? Everything is done with our cell phones. And so it's really important that when we dive into it, and I'll give us like the lay of the land here of how you break it down, is we have to first build that, oh, hey, this person feels different than all these other ones. I'm going to read this. Oh, this person seems really cool. I'm going to respond to this. Now, this person seems like the real deal. Let's actually see where this goes. And the way you do that is by providing an immediate value to that other person. And then the question that everyone says, well, how do you add value right off the bat? Right? And then the follow-up to that is, well, how do you add value if you think you have nothing to add? Because who's going to want to talk to me that's really successful and I'm just starting? And we all have these thoughts. So if you want, I can break down the initial script that I recommend our clients and other people use as well.
Let's do it, because I think I always say to people, you think this is common sense, but my DMs would show it is not. And I have a feeling your DMs would show it is not common sense either. So yes, let's absolutely dive into this.
Okay. So this first part, I'll give 3 steps to this process here.
Okay.
Step number 1 is say hey or hi and their first name. Okay. And people are like, Jake, what, are you kidding me? You're really saying that? We have to. The amount of times people call me Jeff or Jack or Kelfer, Mr. Kelfer. And it's like, first of all, now that taste in my mouth is not inviting. It's not saying, oh, I'm so excited to see what this person said. It's, you just spelled my name wrong and you're literally looking at it 3 inches above where you're typing. Super, super important. And when I work with our assistants and when you start to scale, this is really important to make sure your assistants and your team also have the same values in your outreach. But initially, you want to say, hey, first name. The second thing you want to do is, this is where we start to build the relationship and find the commonality. And so we call this fun fact frenzy, meaning go to that person's Instagram, do a quick stalk. Don't be a creeper. Nobody wants a creeper, but do a quick stalk and see in 30 seconds or so, see if there's anything in common that you have. Are you from the same hometown? Have you traveled to the same places? Do you have the same amount of kids? Are you about the same age? Do you like the same sports teams? Do you have people on the podcast that are in common? Do you follow the same people? All of those things can allow you to create an initial, like, oh, this person comes from a place of comfort, of familiarity. So when I reached out to you initially, I had mentioned something about going to Wisconsin, and I've spoken there a few times and how it's such a great place to be. And that was like an initial way of bridging the gap between who's this random person reaching out to me for no good reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what we say is use that, share that commonality, or share a compliment, or share how you found them.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants to know, well, how did you find me?
Yeah, I think too, it's if you don't come with something, it's like, what does he want? What is he expecting from me? Right? Like you start to have this vibe of like, oh, great, they're going to ask, I'm going to feel obligated, versus when you bring up that you've been to Wisconsin. And actually the first thing that you had brought up to me, you knew somebody that I knew, like you brought up a mutual friend. Mm-hmm. So I can say, well, how do you know them? Or, oh, why were you in Wisconsin? It gives me something to play with versus what am I saying back to this? Like there's nothing for me to say. There's no place for me to go. You kind of like leave me hanging a little bit to want to then bring something to the table.
We have to lower someone's guard and raise the barrier for them to respond to us, right? And that's exactly what you're saying. Another great thing that I'm just going to throw in here is if you see someone on their podcast, we call this podcast tag. You throw them up on their podcast, or they're listening to this episode right now. The easiest way for us to start to build name recognition with you is take a screenshot of this and say, hey, we're listening to this. It's so awesome. Tag us in it. Not only will we likely reshare it with our audiences, but we will also, it'll be saved in our Instagram messages. So when you do go to reach out to us, we're going to automatically say, oh, this person's, we've had some engagement with this person before. So our guard becomes lower.
Okay. I love this. Let me pause because I almost missed this. So you're saying just acknowledge like, I've listened to their podcast, this is gold, or this is great, or something. I'm shouting you out. So let's pretend I'm doing this to you. So I'm going to be like, you guys go listen to Jake's podcast. I tag Jake. This is amazing. You're going to love it. I will show in your DMs that I have acknowledged you, reached out, and it's nothing. I didn't offend you. You're happy that I did that. Is that what you're saying?
Totally. So one of the things that I love seeing people do is, and I've tested all of these things that I'm doing because I want to make sure they work. So sometimes what I'll do is if there's someone I want to get in touch with and they've never heard of me, sure, I could slide into the DMs and see if it's going to work and hope it'll work. But you have to look at all these other factors, engagement, likes, all these different things to see what their chances are. But the easiest thing to do is just listen to their podcast, watch a video, screenshot it, and tag them. Immediately what you're doing is most people are still looking at their stories, and everybody loves when someone shares their content for them.
Oh, for sure.
We love that.
No one's complaining about that.
And we, as business owners, are always going to share someone else talking positively about our brand because that's what we look for. We want the hype. We want the spreading of positive vibes. And so that stays into your DMs. Now, after 24 hours, the story disappears. But in your DM, it still shows this person tagged you in your story or whatever. So that's what I'm saying. And then
I love this strategy. Like we could pause right here and they could already have walked away with gold because you're totally right. Yeah. I feel more obligated, and not a negative way, that if you have done something like that, I am definitely going to really read that message, and I'm actually going to take it more seriously because I don't feel the pressure of like, she's using me. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Lowered the guard. Again,
totally did. Yes.
We've lowered the guard.
Yeah.
And the most beautiful thing about this is it's human nature to want to help the other person. Mm-hmm. Right? Now, initially, when the guard's high, it's obligation.
Yes.
When the guard's low, it's excitement. Mm-hmm. Right? Because now we had come from a place of like, oh, this person's kind of already added a little value to me. Yeah. I need to return that favor.
Yeah. It's like the reciprocating. Like it's not obligation. It feels like, no, we are doing this. Like this is a mutual thing.
Yeah. And so going back to the script, so we address them by the first name. We mention the commonality, something we've learned, a compliment. Yeah. And then you finish off very simply by leaving the door open for further connecting. Looking forward to connecting, really excited to chatting, really excited to dive deeper and learn more from you. You leave it open. Why do you do this? Realistically, people are not going to respond to your first DM. The busier someone is, the less likely they're going to respond to that message. Therefore, a response like that to close off your initial DM allows you to come back 7 days later and hit them with the appropriate follow-up that seems as if it's part of that initial conversation.
Got it.
And that's where you differentiate yourself from all the other people that are trying to reach out and say, hey, I came across your profile. Do you want 20,000 new leads in 6 months? It's like, yeah, I do, but I'm not going to respond to your message because you just sent that to 75,000 other people.
Right. And
right?
I literally block those people now. I don't
Yeah.
even allow that to come in or let them follow me. Right. It's crazy.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of the initial script to get you going that you can
Okay.
use if you're just beginning, or if you're trying to connect with what we call 1-2 steppers, someone who's 1 to 2 step above you, or someone who could be a potential partner that would really help your business down the line.
Now, one thing I kind of skipped here, and again, it's not common sense. Why do you want to connect with people? What are you doing? Why build your network? Like, what does that look like for you?
Well, we don't have businesses if we don't have connection.
Mm-hmm.
You will never have a successful business if you don't have customers, right? Like that's just the truth.
Yeah.
You will never have a successful business if you don't have foot traffic.
Mm-hmm.
You will never have a successful business if you aren't able to convert clients, right? Everything stems from connection. Everything we do in our life stems from connection. The thing that we all want more in life is money, impact, fame. We want more of all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Happiness, freedom. The way we get that is through our connections, right? Connection is the vehicle to bring us that. So why it's important is because the foundational principle of every business stems from our ability to connect and our ability to grow relationships with prospects and turn them into buyers,
Mm-hmm.
buyers and turn them into lifelong fans, and mentors and coaches that enable us to learn and accelerate our path. And so I like to break it down into there's 3 types of people. You have the people that you want to work with, the people that you already work with, and the people that can help you accelerate your path. Those are the people, the groups, and you can really start to dive deeper into those as you go. But that's the truth of why connection is so important, is because it's the foundational element that enables us to live a happier life, a more free life, and make more money and have more impact.
Yeah. When you're thinking about adding value, like what are some other ways, or how do people diagnose themselves to say, or assess themselves to say, this is where I could add value, or this is like one of my unique things that I should be leveraging inside of here?
This is something that we often tend to overthink because we think we have to do something so grandiose, right? We think, oh, I have to do this big thing. But what you just have to do is you just have to realize that 99% of people are going to do the same thing. The spam, the copy and paste, and just spray and pray.
Yeah.
If you take a second to think and customize, that's step 1. You're going to beat the game 9 times out of 10. But if you want to take it further, adding value comes in the form of asking someone to be in your summit, right? If you let them know, hey, I'm going to do a summit and I want to feature you in it, I'm going to put in $1,000 of paid ads to promote to this audience. Well, if that person is in that audience, they're more likely going to say yes, because they're like, you're going to pay $1,000. My face is going to be on that ad. Great. That's free advertising. That's valuable. Mm-hmm. And you're already doing it anyways. You're just letting them know. Right. If somebody is doing a blog post and wants to feature a guest, that's good. But maybe instead write a book and invite people to be on it. Mm-hmm. So like one of the things that I'm doing right now as I continue to expand my network is I want to interview some of the world's greatest people, including like Magic Johnson and some of the people that I've looked up to my entire life. Yeah. Well, I said, I'm not going to be able to just ask him for an interview. So how do I add value? Well, I'm writing an entire book. And the reason I started this book is because of Magic Johnson and his impact on me. Now that ask makes it much easier. Right. Once I get down the line, right? So adding value is taking what other people are doing and doing it better, or taking what other people are doing and doing a little bit more. So some more concrete examples. Featuring someone's product in your email list without an affiliate promotion. Then letting them know, hey, I just featured you in this. Thanks so much for all that you do. I'm happy to share this with my audience. Posting them and spreading their content on social media. Commenting and liking on their posts consistently with custom comments is huge. Everybody wants more engagement. We all want that social proof. Knowing that if they're under 100 comments per post, they're going to see every time you comment. You're going to build a name recognition. They're going to be like, oh, wow, you really like my stuff. That's so cool. Featuring them in different things, inviting them to be on summits. These are some of the ways that we can add value where it doesn't cost us a ton of money if we're beginning and we don't have the money to buy into a mastermind or buy into a mentorship or a $10,000 coaching program. This is an initial way to get the ball rolling and start to find these people. And that's really all you need to get going.
Yeah, I love that. And one thing that you had done too is you connected me with somebody else. Like you knew somebody that like the two of us could connect, had nothing to do with you, but it was like, oh, you two will get along and you'll have some cool things to do. Like, there you go. So it's like another way of like just showing like you're here to help, you're here to support. And that's the thing, when you have this amazing network, you can pull from that network and be like, I've got to connect her and him, and these two are going to love it. And again, it's like, they're going to remember that. They're going to be thinking of, oh, this was that person that helped me do this, or that helped me do that. So I think that's really key. But it's real stuff. It's actually things they want. It's not like a fake give. It's not a fake, there's actual value there. And that's what I want people to hear.
Yeah. The biggest thing ever is like, ask yourself, what would make you feel good? Because this is the truth. Maya Angelou said it best. People forget what you said, people forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And all we want to do as human beings is to feel loved, to feel heard, to feel valued, to feel like we belong, and to feel that we matter. Knowing this, why do we not put more intention into giving somebody that feeling? And when it comes to business, ask yourself, what would make me feel good if someone else did this? If someone bought my book and then posted it, that would make me feel pretty good. If someone constantly hyped my coaching program up, that would make me feel good. If someone invited me on their podcast, that would make me feel good. If someone introduced me to someone else just because they thought we'd be a good fit, that would be really great. All of those things, now you just flip it over and say, I'm going to do these things for other people.
Yeah.
And when you come from that place of intention and you come from that place of understanding how you can help, well, it makes it a lot easier. And then the results start to happen, and then the snowball starts to go. Yeah. And all of a sudden, 6 months later, a year later, your Rolodex is massive. You've got all these incredible people that want to help you. You've dug your well, as they say, and now you're thirsty, and it's time to make magic happen. So it's really all about understanding how we're making somebody else feel.
Yeah. Now, I'm very type A, so this might not be a strategy you do, but I'm curious. When you're building this massive network of all these people in your back pocket, how do you remember to stay in touch with them? Give me a spreadsheet or a strategy or something that my brain can wrap my head around, because I'm thinking, how do you just all of a sudden think to go, oh shoot, I have a favor and I haven't talked to these people in 6 months or 12 months or 3 years?
So there's always going to be cycles of relationships, where some relationships are going to last forever. Some relationships are going to be shorter to see if something can happen or if not. But when it comes to this, what I really like to do is people that I really want to connect with, I make sure that I'm following them in as many social platforms as possible, or that I'm currently actively using. So right now, I don't use Twitter that much. I'm not going to spend my time on Twitter. Instead, I'm going to go on Instagram. I'm picking my one platform that's going to really expedite my success. Once I'm on Instagram, what I try to do is do all the things that I'm telling you right now, but to maintain the relationship. It's so, after this, we'll take a picture and we're going to say, hey, we're just on the podcast. We're just going to keep that going. Then you're going to launch something, or you're going to open something up, and I'm going to share that. And I'm going to say, mention something, because that's so cool. If it's a birthday, people always give you
how do you remember is my question. How do you remember oh shoot, I was talking to Stacy 6 months ago. How do you keep talking to that person?
Okay. So
that makes sense.
Yes, it totally does. And I could go super, super deep into this, but I want to try to keep it where people can actually say Jake, you're crazy. You actually do everything.
Hey, but I am that crazy person that's tell me the strategy.
Okay. So this is the best way to do it. After every conversation that I have, I try to write down 3 to 5 notes based on that conversation that I saw a response in them.
Got it.
So meaning we're on Zoom, we're able to see each other right now. I'm trying to take note mentally without distracting from the present moment of what I can remember from this conversation. The best time to do that is right after. So right after this is done, before my next meeting, before I go eat lunch, before I do whatever, I'm going to write down a few things about this.
I love this. Okay.
This is hands down the best way. Yeah. Then what you do is every 3 months, you run through every month, run every 2 months, pick a time. It doesn't matter to you. And just look at those calls that you've had. And then just say, hey, you mentioned that you were getting ready to launch this. How's that going?
Got it.
Oh, you've been working on your book for the last 3 months? Did you end up finishing the book? I'm so excited to read it. Now what you're doing is you are becoming a champion. Yeah. You have now turned into that person. You are wow, that person is so supportive. They pay attention. They genuinely care about me. But all you really did was just write down 3 notes and then put a reminder in your phone and said, hey, I'm going to come back to you.
Yeah.
So I like to do things like that where I write down notes. Sometimes I write down key moments. If I can remember, throw them in my reminders. Yeah. And I rely on not having to remember myself.
Totally.
We need to not use our decisions and our mental capacity for things like that, but rather enable us to think bigger so that we can create the strategy and then have that on automation where it's constantly reminding us when to show up.
Yeah. And I love that because I'm already doing things like that in my business with potential leads, current clients. Every one of my clients has a file. They have notes in there. Our team members, like we're already doing that. I just don't feel like we took it to the next level of what we call like our Dream 100. We really haven't done it that way. And it makes so much sense. So I appreciate you kind of breaking that down for us. Jake, what's anything, I want to wrap up. So anything that we didn't get to cover or anything that you really want people just as a refresher to remember leaving this episode?
Well, I think it's really important to remember, like we've made connecting seem so easy. Okay. Connection is simple. It's not easy. It requires effort, and you will be rejected on this journey. Like I get DMs that never get responded to. I send emails that people reject the conversation. It always happens no matter how big or how much success you've had in your life.
Yeah.
So what I would say to remind people is two things. One is your style is the only style you need. That style, whether you're an introvert, an extrovert, you're quiet, you're loud, you're soft, you're whatever your style is, that is all you really need to be successful in connecting, is to own your style and commit to it. And the second thing is understand that there are 8 billion people or so, almost 8 billion people in the world. Of course, some are going to reject you, but there's also so many people that want to get to know you and that will be a great fit for who you are and what you have to offer. So don't get discouraged, but always remember to take that action. So I want to leave people with that as they start to implement everything we've talked about.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you said it's simple, not easy. There are so many things in business that are simple that we like to overcomplicate, and then we expect it to be easier than it really is. So good. Where can people find you? Favorite places to hang out online? Let us know.
The best places to find me is on Instagram at Jake Kelfer or my website, jakekelfer.com. And for everyone that's listening, we have a few cool giveaways and freebies for your people. My book is Elevate Your Network. You can get a free copy of that. That talks about a lot of the things we just talked about. And then we also have a guide that we just created called 71 Things to Turn Your Network into a 6-Figure Business. So that's a really great thing to talk about the podcast tag and all these strategies that you can start to implement to add value. So those are the best places to connect.
Cool. Where can they grab that download?
All in my Instagram bio. Just click the link and it's right there for you.
Amazing. Jake, thank you so much for being here. This was so fun to be able to do this. So I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.